Hi, everyone, and welcome to our next painting collection painting webinar. Today is Friday. First of all, I have to double think that Friday, October, it's just, I cannot do it like right away. 2012. I think that one I can do. Hi, Jen, how are you?
Hi, babe. I'm great. How are you?
I have to think twice.
Love
Good. I'm
it.
excited and thanks for being here. I'm excited about this collection.
I'm super excited.
Yeah, so we already got some friends approaching us saying that they want to see the paintings and maybe they want to use the paintings for some publications or
Oh,
articles.
amazing.
I'm really excited, and it just feels bit untimely. And thanks for joining us, by the way. If you are joining us, I just chose this image. I'm going to start right away. And yeah, so essentially these all happened when we were in Salisbury in the painting retreat. We were insulated and happy, which is good, and not checking the news all the time. And it felt really good, but it was essentially at that time that things started to become ugly. I don't know if I would say that word, but really dangerous turning point. This has happened before, not only in this country, but in other countries. But I feel like this was the confluence of many things, and it has spread so wide that people like to use the word intersectional, and it is, because I feel like the event is one thing, but I feel everyone who is being galvanized are showing the anguish and injustice for many other reasons, women and men, I would say, but mostly obviously women. So anyhow, so I picked this image and I'm gonna go ahead and we're doing a portrait. So this is it's a good subject matter, just because it has a little bit of narrative. So I'm just gonna focus on the actual theme for a second. So what I'll do, I'm using a rectangle. I'm using actually a wood panel that I found. So I'm using wood panel that it's gesso, it's a different surface. And first things first, I'm just gonna set up the perimeter or the height. So I tried to make my own scaffolding, and maybe because it's similar in, let's see if I can find it. Yeah, because it's similar in size, I'm just going to use my yardstick and kind of like measure the width of the subject. So it's about 8.5, 8.25. So with that, what I'm going to do is with 8.25, I'm actually going to place it in. Oh, I was right. Or oops, someone just signed up, Jen, I believe. If you want to
Okay,
check
I
it
will
out.
check it out. Yep.
And then but what I did is, yeah, what I did was, yeah, just kind of like measure it. I'm curious and see. Yeah, close. I measured it and I just like centered it because, the image is a little bit off center. I'm deciding many things. I'm going to use a lot of simplification. First of all, the concept of this is more important than the result. So I think it's important here to flip all the cards on the table. I want to do a good job, and at the same time, I don't want to put too much pressure on myself, because there's the concept here that I think it's important. So I'm gonna use the yardstick. No worries if you don't have it. Obviously, I almost didn't print this because everything was broken at the Kinko's and stuff. But if you have an image that's similar, then use it. And if you don't, then use a screen. So what I'm doing right now is essentially doing my first potato shape. And I'm starting from this area, from one side, just because I want to avoid, I want to control the position of the focal point in my space. It's a little bit off center and I want to make sure that it's a little bit more center. So this will be the elbow. So I'm just gonna align the elbow more or less. Okay, there we go. And try to align the fist. It's a little bit right here. And I'm just gonna continue with the rest. Okay, I think that's my first potato shape. I think that's good. So I just did my first potato shape. And so, oh my gosh, that is just amazing. Yeah, Laura, that's wonderful. Okay, just wanted to say, I think she's joining us, right, Jen? I don't know. Yes.
I hope so. I'm not sure. I don't know if she bought it for now or for later, but
Oh, I see. I see.
we'll see.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the old Salisbury group is together live. Yes.
Oh,
That's
she just
awesome.
came on. Hi, Salisbury. What's up? Salisbury in the house.
So awesome. We feel the kinship, you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's right. Thanks for your support. So yeah, we're recording this section, but we can't wait to hear your lovely voices after we finish. But yeah, just did my first potato shape. And I'm just gonna, before I move forward, I just want to refine a little bit that potato shape. So silhouette is a great way to control the spaces, a great way to control the spaces. So I'm just gonna do again a little bit of a check on the alignment. I don't want to be specific or too specific. And that way I try to focus on the outline. I pretend there are no details or anything. I focus on the outline and imagine this. I imagine this is a cutout. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And this, I find some vertical alignments. I think that's good. We don't have to be accurate. In fact, non-accuracy is appreciated just because it gives you more authenticity. Okay, maybe I should just lower this a little bit. I need to change the palette. I still have it from the self as child, but that's not gonna take me that much time. Okay, so I'm okay. I feel like I'm okay with my first potato shape. And then I'm gonna do the structural lines. So first, breathe in and then start deconstructing the image into easier cutout shapes or a single cutout shape. If you're working from a screen, then not a problem. Just try to work with or start with one area and then create a potato shape and maybe at the ends readjust it. What's important right here, doesn't matter. Obviously, you guys, we will be painting together until the end of time. And that makes me very happy. So even on our last painting session, in the long future or our future really, really far away from today, I will say this: be careful with your proximity of the focal point with the edges. Doesn't matter if yeah, we become immortal. I was watching the new interview with the vampire last night.
A new one?
There's a new one. There's a new one.
I don't
It's
know.
okay, but it's gorgeous. Production's gorgeous, and then the actors are very handsome. And there's more
Oh,
queerness than uh the Brad Pitt and the Tom Cruise, right? Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, was it?
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe
And
it.
Kirsten Dunst.
Yes.
She was
That was an
amazing.
epic cultural moment in history.
Yes.
Um,
It was
so
incredible.
yeah. Anyhow, so the book is actually, it was actually, or is more queer than that movie, but in this series, they're trying to bring that story of the two vampires more to the surface. Um, anyhow, so I just bring it up because of the idea of mortality and then immortality and doing things. Yeah, I don't know who's calling, but that's okay. So I'm just gonna focus back onto this, and then I will just do my first structural line, maybe hairline. Just get the face. I will readjust. I made the face a little bit too high, and I didn't give enough space. This is something that we do all the time, and what a great opportunity to actually do this, to realize that it's something we always need to be aware of, because otherwise we don't leave enough space for the head, for the hair especially. So this will be, yeah, this will be it. No details. Don't worry about the details. Don't worry about fingers or scissors or anything like that. Don't worry. So again, this is, the conceptual is as important, if not more, than the visual. So maybe I should do the arm. I go for structural lines that I feel like they are easier. They have more continuous lines. Maybe they're on the foreground. Maybe the first line that I should have done is the arm because it's on the foreground. So think of those arms that are lifted on the motion of cutting, because that could be a great focal point and not so much the facial features. We said this was a portrait assignment. I think it's more like a figure painting or figure, yes, period. So I'm just gonna do that, the arm, and not so much, okay, here we go, not so much the portrait. Okay, let me just check and see. I just measured it, so I'm gonna use the measurement to find out how far from the edge is that peak. So it's about 4 inches. So I'm just gonna do that. Wowza. Okay, good. So that's a good place to do this. Okay, good. So the cuff, I just measured where the cuff is in comparison to the side. So that's why sometimes if you are able to print it out, even if it's in black and white, you don't have to, but it kind of like helps to rearrange or retrofit rather. Okay, so the rest I could just generalize. Yeah, I could generalize. I'm just doing that hand. I'm gonna spend some time, I think, here and just to rearrange arms, because this is not a static figure. It's not a figure facing forward, and it's not a figure or a focal point in which we can apply a specific formula. Any book on anatomy, you know, as beautiful as they are, I found them always completely useless. I remember being very young and then getting anatomy, not anatomy books, but how to draw the figure and the proportions and the 8.5 heads or 7.5 heads and the male versus female, which I want to revisit those books and find out exactly how that was made. But all the figures were facing forward. You were like on page 10. Okay, so let's do the heads, 7 heads. Then you would go to page 11, and it was like a foreshortened figure just drinking tea. And so they wouldn't explain the jump from the 7.5 heads onto real life. So I always found them useless, pretty much.
Leo, was it saying that the body is 7.5 heads?
Yeah,
Saying? Okay.
I think it's the 7.5. I haven't seen or heard of that before.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. I hope it's totally obsolete right now, because it just doesn't make sense. But yeah. So, and always the figure was like static, facing forward and upright. So of course you would practice and memorize, but then how do you do it with someone sitting down? It doesn't work. And then you feel terrible. You think you're a failure. You think like you don't know how to do this, and you never will. And that's what this kind of like approach is. We were talking about it yesterday because we had the figure painting class or session, and it was pretty amazing. And there were 3 people that never painted before, and they did an amazing job. But I didn't focus on proportion, obviously. Okay, so I'm just doing structural lines. I'm doing structural lines. So align, measure. It's not important to measure. It's not important to nail anything. Don't worry about, I put some effort because I enjoy it. It doesn't mean like you're at one level and someone else is going to be at a different level. No, that's no implications whatsoever. I enjoy it. I love being able to arrange things. I love to use tools to arrange things, but that's not gonna necessarily make a painting more interesting or better. Okay, yeah, step back. It's important. My way of stepping back is looking at the screen. So actually, I'm just gonna move this. I think that's good. Okay, yeah, looking at the screen, but yeah, I think time-wise, it's good. So I'm just gonna do a few more lines. Think of axis lines as well. So for example, there's an axis line on the face and there's an angle on the face, and mine, the angle is completely vertical. So check, check, check. This is another way of, checking for, who's calling me? I don't know. Another way of checking for alignments. So I'm just gonna align the end of the paintbrush, lock my wrist, and then pivot, and boom, I'm just gonna do this on the face. So it's a little bit more of a cheekbone on this side. So Kiana and I, okay, this will be recorded for eternity, and that's good. But Jen, Kiana and I, we were talking about this just because, I brought up this things or these topics with him and the family. There's so much trauma built up that I feel like there's a lot of silence. And so it's not a subject. Yeah.
With his family.
Yeah. So I totally, yeah, it's just so interesting that sometimes it's amazing how you respond to things, because they may trigger something that completely shuts you down.
Yeah.
And that's why I think you need a support system, or you need a community that kind of like help you find your voice, I guess. And I don't know. But on a lighter note, we were discussing how the three French actresses, as as a way of supporting this, they cut their hair on camera. Marianne Cotillard, Juliette Binoche, and the other one, sorry, the other one. It's not as famous, but she is famous. I forgot her name. Actually, her name is Isabelle Huppert. Anyhow, I said it. It's like, do you think any American actress will do the same? And then he said, are you nuts? Of course not. What do you think, Jen?
I think if they were going to, they would have done it by now. How about this? I have a haircut appointment on. Just kidding. That's terrible.
Oh,
That's terrible.
it was total.
Erase that from. Can we edit that out?
Yeah, probably. No, it was total
No.
gossip, and I was totally making fun and thinking, wow, this obviously it's pretty amazing. It's just incredible. And
It
it
is
just made me
incredible.
think, because I sort of like people with public figures, they have so much leverage sometimes, even though people want to dismiss that leverage and that power, it is something that comes with being a public figure. And sometimes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. I completely cut you off.
No.
I was just going to say, I completely agree. I wonder, and I'm no expert on this, so I'm putting the question out there of how new activism and being vocal about protest and especially when it comes to people's rights in other countries and women and all of that. Like, I wonder how new that is to American actresses, having what they feel like a voice is in that. I just wonder, and that's a pure question that I really don't know, because I'm thinking, like, in my head, like Jane Fonda has always, I think, but not always been an activist. Gloria Steinem certainly isn't an actress, but I'm just thinking of, like, when I think of activists from a different generation that I know their names, like how many actresses come to mind. I'm thinking, like, is this a newish sort of thing that women feel empowered in Hollywood to speak on without feeling like they're going to get fired or they're going to be labeled as too much trouble, I mean, I think it's just like another example of how Americans are different than anyone else in European.
No, it's a valid question. I don't think they're different.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
no, it was a total trigger question that I proposed, kind of like to make fun and sort of like say,
no, I don't know. I mean, I'm curious as to, like, if any actresses from the UK have.
I just feel, because the thing is that I look at the diaspora of the exile community in the world of Iranians. So France, in Europe, France has the biggest population of exiles in Europe. So it just made sense, obviously.
Right.
The next one is the UK. So I'm glad you brought up two things, the UK and also the word fear, because sometimes from at any level, we put together do I say something, or what's
Right.
the collateral damage? So we do it in our own lives and in our own small circles. Imagine when you have a public figure, that implies, much more than just your inner circle or your close circle.
Mhm.
But you're right about the UK. Maybe we should have just shifted and instead say, because there's so many British actresses,
Mhm.
and that's the second place where the diaspora of the exiles, it's larger. And then after that, it's the US,
Mhm.
specifically Hollywood.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the largest Iranian community in the US, and LA, essentially.
I've seen. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've seen like on the actresses. I mean, this is lame, but the actresses that I follow on Instagram, you know, um, them posting and
Oh, good. Yeah.
hashtag and all of that. I think even Jessica Chastain had a
Pretty.
live with an expert on the subject, I would
Wow.
say. And just to pour more light on
Right.
it. But as far as cutting the hair, I haven't seen anyone.
Yeah, no, I think that was pretty. I think everyone was really not surprised that that was a pretty bold. I mean, from the three of the three of them, was a pretty bold, because you can show support in many ways, obviously.
Mm-hmm. They're such badass actresses too.
I know.
Oh,
Yeah.
all three of them are.
Yeah.
I mean, Marion Cotillard. What? Like, oh, she's. I mean, all of them are incredible actresses.
Yeah, really, really. All right, so I think I'm done with sketch 7. I mean, it's 7. 11:36. I don't know why I said 7. All right, so I'm just gonna, while we talk about this, I'm gonna reset my palette because I still have things from last night. But yeah, I'm happy about the position. In fact, I don't know, I just feel like I moved the figure a little bit to the right, and I feel like I moved it perhaps a tad too much. I'm just reflecting on it. Maybe I shouldn't have, because there's still a little bit of an imbalance between. So maybe I'll just extend the elbow a little bit and shave the shoulder to make it more foreshortened. I feel like the action or the focal point within the focal point, it's this area right here. So the actual, if I had to amplify something, so I'm happy that this is a little bit of the center left. So I think that's good. I'm just gonna squeeze and just bring some of the things. Sorry. Right. But yeah. Yeah, and then so many friends that I now know, just because obviously because of Kian, and that are Iranian that live in different countries, and there's this, yeah, this traumatic experience exploding within their own private circumstances. It's really something. And I feel like people also are responding just because on a different scale, but we know that here in the US there's this really ridiculous and absurd ruling. I mean, the loss of control of your own body, it's just so wrong and backward. And I feel like, it just feels like things are going back. They're not moving forward for some reason. I was just reading something, and I'm just blabbering, you guys, yesterday about survey. They were surveying the political views of men and women, young men and women, because I think there's constant studies about where the politics of the new generations are going or are getting directed, because the masterminds, I guess, of each political party, they make sure that they constantly have in place a plan to capture people within the ranks as early as possible. So the whole idea of messing with universities and education, the underlying dark reason for it, it's because they call it indoctrination, but the truth is that they don't want new brains or generations to have the opposite political views. So they were doing a survey, and it's quite terrifying because on the surface and the bubbles that we live in, we think that this is unstoppable. You know, young generations are already there, and we're just witnessing the last time the older generations are complaining about this. But surprisingly, there is this trend in which women are becoming more liberal and progressive, young women, and young men are becoming more conservative. And apparently it's not even close. There is a big gap between how politically each sort of like generalized gender is moving towards. And the article was explaining that naturally women are becoming more liberal because more rights are taken away from them, and because they're experiencing more inequalities and violence and sexism. And so, the ruling catapulted this or cemented this trend, and naturally women are more progressive or liberal. But young men, I was really shocked. Young men are going on the opposite direction. They're becoming more hardcore, rigid, intolerant, conservative. That's scary. And now I'm gonna paint. Sorry, I'm just gonna move and bring all the easels, and I'm gonna do the first staining. Whoa, this is like, and I'm gonna get the rag, and here we go. Darker to lighter. I'm gonna treat this monochromatically. What am I doing? A little bit of yellow ochre. Ooh, for the hair. Oh, this feels good. I'm just blocking out. Anyhow, there was just interesting stuff and interesting trends. And I'm gonna use black for the shirt, actually. So use black for the shirt. Yeah, so a little bit of blue, and I'm just blocking out. My surface is so yeah, just gonna block it out. Anyhow. Losing a little bit of definition, but that's okay. I'm gonna bring a little bit of the ecru and salmon rose, and I'm gonna block the face. It's a little bit messy, but that's good. Messy is good. Okay, and on the background, I'm just gonna use gray. I'm gonna make it a little bit harmonious. I'm gonna make it harmonious because so this photograph, some of the photographs or all the photographs that we put on the folder, they are of women in different parts of the world, different cities, cutting their hair because of this. We wanted to, because if you Google women cutting their own hair, which is interesting, by the way, you will not find any protest. You know, it's just DUIs about how to cut your own hair.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, just I thought it would be easier to, I don't know, I don't want to be conspiratorial, but who knows? It's not, go ahead.
Where did you get these photos then?
No, I had to really dig deep. I had to find, by just Googling, they wouldn't pop up. I had to Google an image and then find similar images and then find a thread, essentially.
Right.
But it's not even, so there, so this is what happens when you Google it. You'll find many articles with a headline, "Why do Iranian women cut their own hair as protest?" And then they elaborate, they just tell you what's happening, they tell you the history, and this is not something new. I think it's very interesting. None of the articles have, some of the articles do, I'm wrong, but majority of the articles don't have images of actually women cutting their hair. And it may be because these are, they need to press authorization or usage or something. I don't know. This feels like they're like social media images.
I wonder if, again, fear comes into play. I mean,
yeah.
You know, like I watched this video of this 17-year-old girl that protested this, and she was returned to her family. The broken skull, I mean, she's dead. She was returned to her body. Her body was returned to her family. The broken skull, broken nose, and dead. And so I wonder too if,
yeah, of course.
I don't know. I mean, what grief.
Yeah, that's what this is all about too, you know, because even if you're far away, you think, do I want to do this? I mean, is there anyone going to knock on my door? And so that's what they count on, you know, but
right.
yeah, absolutely. But at the end of the day, I don't know, everyone makes their own decision, obviously. But yeah, that I just wanted to validate that, because that's precisely what oppression is. They
Right.
kind of like put this self-regulating mechanisms that go beyond one event or one location. It's the same. I mean, I'm going to make a parallel, but it's the same with voter suppression. They may be laws and they may just say, oh no, but you know, this is for everyone. You need to, this is to make it more secure. But the psychological mechanism behind any of those regulations or laws is precisely to make you feel like afraid of doing something, exercising your, there's no difference. There's a psychological component. They know, and I'm comfortable just using the pronoun they know that maybe they'll be able to stop many thousands of votes, or but they know that psychologically they'll affect hundreds of thousands of people. So because they say, well, if you have to show this document, so just go and do it, just show the document. What's the harm? Everyone does it in other countries. Why can't we do it? We need to make sure that we're but it's a psychological sort of like warfare. It's the same thing with this. Well, an event occurring far away from us, in a different, we'll never be there, we'll never go there, we'll never travel there, but psychologically it has an impact, a global impact. Makes you feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say anything, or someone's looking, someone's watching. It's always that fear. So yeah, it did cross my mind. But then I said, I'm gay. I would be thrown out of building, or God knows what kind of thing they would do to me if I were there. So this is nothing. Which is something that also kind of like looms on Kian's traumatic experience of having to leave that regime. He knows that if he ever goes back, first of all, he can't, but if he wants to, he would be apprehended and arrested and executed. I mean, think of that. It's just so crazy, right?
That's because he didn't serve, right?
Well, that's, yeah, he would probably be fined, but mostly because if he would be open and he would show, affection or whatever, he would be arrested and killed. Yeah, it's pretty sobering thought. But anyhow, so I'm just doing the darker to lighter. I just love that. That's why I think that this is a good subject, in the sense that I love the history of cutting hair in protest. I think it's interesting to find examples in literature and in different cultures, this idea of denying something that's yours to others. It's a really beautiful and strong way of protesting. And also, the solidarity. I just loved reading that, people used to do this in funerals when they would lose their beloveds. They would just pull their hair out, or they would just find no meaning in arranging the hair, or expressing themselves through the hair, and they would pull the hair or cut it completely. In solidarity for the loss of a relative or beloved. So I think like this idea of showing solidarity with the family of the person, as if they were part of their family, it's also really beautiful and very inspiring, I find. Yeah, hair. In art, the symbolism, the significance, the importance, and the idea that it's such a inherent part of how we express ourselves to others, how we present ourselves to others. It's so part of our individuality. So thinking of controlling someone's body by just oppressing their ability to express themselves. Yeah, I totally see the connection. And it's always been I don't remember because I didn't live through it, but I wasn't born, but in the 60s, if you were a guy and you had long hair, pretty much, I wonder how many teenagers were expelled from their homes and schools because of long hair. And because that was a big deal.
It's a really big deal here.
Really?
Yeah, big time in America. I mean, from what I've read and seen,
yeah,
like you wouldn't be able to enter establishments.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was a really, really big deal.
Wow. Imagine. Seems insane, but yeah.
It seems insane. I mean, just think about the things that we're doing now.
The what?
I can name like 50 of them, but still.
Say that again?
I said, just think of all the things that people are going to say about us. But at the same time, I can already name like 50 things off the top of my head that people will shake their
Oh my gosh.
in the future. I hope.
Oh, I see your point. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
I hope so too.
I was driving yesterday and I drove by this church and there was this big banner outside and it said, "In this congregation, we believe," and it listed these things that just feel like common sense that everyone should believe. Love is love. Black Lives Matter. Climate change is real. No one is illegal. And then women have agency over their own bodies. I think that was all. I'm sure. Oh, every person, essentially talking about like people who identify as trans and what have you. Like it's something. Mm-hmm. Forgive me for not knowing what exactly, but it was in just all the very inclusive language, right. And in some way I was like, oh, good. Like, oh, I'm so glad that, that church believes that. That's important to say because people, I think, assume that, automatically assume that's not the case. But then also like, good grief. We have to say this. What in the world? Yeah, anyway. In very tiny letters, I will say, of course, the very last thing on that list is women have agency over their bodies. I just want to say that.
Okay, good. Everything, it's there's a message there.
There's a message there. It was last, and it was also partly covered by a bush to where I couldn't even see the word women. It was just agency over their bodies. And I was like, does it say everyone or what does it say?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a hierarchy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Love is love was number one.
Oh, yeah. There's an agenda by listing things in that order for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No. Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to find out what they will say. Remember in the 2020s, this used to be a big deal. I hope. So I'm just kind of like doing skin tones. It was so good yesterday that we did this with a transgender model, by the way, just because if there's anything that we could do is sort of like normalize and just normalize, I don't know. So it was very good because I feel like, we need to make an effort to approach the other. People use the word otherism as a means to say we are separating ourselves from others too much. And in order to overcome this fear, we have to reach out. We have to leave our comfortable spaces, and we have to engage. So it was really beautiful yesterday to just go through the session. It was just great. And yeah, and there was a great conversation outside on the table, Jen. So people were they gathered, and it was a really beautiful conversation about everything. It was really good.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah, it's really good. Right, and just pixelating. Maybe I'm not articulating the steps as accurately, but yeah, essentially what I'm doing is I am pixelating brush strokes. I feel like it was nice to build the sketch in a way that allowed me to make more specific manipulations. And right now I'm just having fun blocking out and pixelating, a little bit of oil, and just I'm gonna bring some either cerulean blue or maybe phthalo. I'm gonna try phthalo because there's something in that blue that feels really rich. And I will, yeah, I will continue to fill gaps, to work on the edge. I did a little bit of bone structure, and with a slightly darker color, I just did the shadows of the facial features without too much. I also did a few notes on the hair just with dark and yellow ochre. Follow the direction and not being specific with the brush strokes. And I feel like that is giving me great results already, texture-wise and hair-wise. Maybe just darkening a little bit more on that area. But yeah, less is more. Your painting surface is not a graveyard. Don't try to cover too much. Manipulate, be strategic. Use sfumato and pizzicato. Soften and sharpen. Soften areas, sharpen areas. Especially, I'm saying this because around the hair, this area is super soft. I'm not using a very thin brush. I'm just gonna use everything or do this with a bigger brush, so slightly bigger. So on Wednesday, Chloe and I were talking about the book. We decided to finish the book. There are only 2 more chapters left, 2 more female artists from the early 20th century. We're learning so much and it's so beautiful. So we talked about an artist named Gwen John. And we know this artist not just because the book, since the Salisbury group is here, when we went to Arundel's, to the house where the pre-Thatcher prime minister lived, and we saw the collection of paintings. There was one Gwen John. It was a small watercolor. It didn't feel like an oil study of 2 women inside of a space, a darker space. There was also an Augustus John. There was a sketch of an Augustus John. Gwen John and Augustus John were brother and sister, or sister and brother. He got the attention. He had this charismatic personality. He was a bohemian. He was a rule breaker. He was eccentric. I would say, I would dare to say, eccentricity in men in the UK at that time was a currency. There was something about being eccentric and being a man and being an artist that somehow made you more valuable. Being eccentric and a woman, it wasn't a currency. So they had different personalities, and she was very shy. She was very introspective. She was very focused on her work. To be fair, Augustus John wanted to incorporate, or not incorporate, let me just made an effort to promote her sister, his sister. He wanted to do art shows with her. He constantly tried to support and promote her work, but at some point she was out. She wasn't into this. She lived in France most of her life, and she painted portraits of women in interiors. It was interesting to learn also at the time that women were experiencing the beginnings of some sort of form of independence from their roles, their domestic roles. And this was essentially only allowed to women that had either privilege or they lived in urban areas. So what that meant, women started to have careers, they had more access to education, and they, which is something that also is related to what's happening right now, not only in Iran, but in other countries where access to education to girls and women is not allowed. And it's a way of control and oppression as well, by the way. Iranian women are highly educated. So some people were arguing, some people who live in countries with Muslim regimes, or I'm sorry, I'm going to correct myself, Islamic regimes that have been imposed relatively recently. For example, Somalia, they were saying, how come this is not happening in Somalia, where there's the same ruling and the same punishment and the same oppression? And someone answered saying, because women in Iran have had access to education more than in Somalia. A form of control and oppression is to forbid access to education. And you could see that in imperial eras in the UK. The form of controlling women was not to give them access to education, not to give them access to voting, not to give them access to, you do the list. Yeah, so I was just gonna say that in regards to Gwen John, going back to Gwen John, it was really interesting to, she lived in France, and one of the things, yes, one of the things that women did at the time, and it's something that I never put together, because I read many novels about that time, but I never put it together. But one way that, one of the very few limited options that women had to actually be independent without being controversial, I guess, was to rent rooms in buildings. So the author of the book brings focus to the fact that renting a room in a building was a way of, for a woman to gain independence, not have someone be in their business, not have society judge them for being single. So there were a lot of artists and writers and female intellectuals that they prefer to live in rented rooms. And I'm saying this because Gwen's work, if you guys remember when we went to Arundel's, it was a study, a watercolor sketch study of two women in a space. Gwen John was known for doing portraits of women, but also portraits of rooms. Anyhow, I just found it interesting because in so many characters in novels and movies, you would see them entering a Victorian home with their suitcases and saying, oh, so where's my room? And then they just have this dingy room or this dark room, this small space. But there's always a character traveling. There's always a character going to a place and renting a room. So that was the deal. That was how you would gain independence. So she decided to leave London, to leave the UK, to leave her brother, and she rented rooms in France near Paris and in Paris. And she lived in rooms and rented rooms for the rest of her life. She needed absolute isolation to create. She needed, and you know, I'm gonna sort of like bridge what I said, and the fact that I forgot the name of the woman who lived in Montpesson's house. Do you remember, Jen? She lived there by herself, essentially after, you know, I think her husband died young.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So that was sort of like another
Was
way.
it? Oh my gosh! Someone chatted. It was either Elizabeth, Margaret, or Martha. Does anything ring a bell? We talked about her all the time.
Yeah, we just wanted to channel her spirit in the house.
It was Elizabeth.
But that's kind of like another example of finding independence and you know, in the way you live. Obviously, she was well enough not to rent a room, but Barbara.
Gosh, Lois, thank God.
You
What world was I coming from?
Gryffindor. You guys, experience this together. Sorry, Jen, what were you saying?
No, I mean, seriously, Julio, what happens to us?
I don't know. It's
you and I both. We're so far off. I was so far off. Lordy. No, but just this idea of a room. I mean, I just feel like it just has to be said about Virginia Woolf. Like basically, like it feels like her entire legacy is not her entire legacy, but just a big part of it is, you know, her book.
Is what?
It's her book.
It's okay.
A Room of One's Own. A room of, yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So I just felt like I just had to say that.
Yep. Yeah. I mean,
obviously that being the.
I felt so ignorant of not putting two and two together and realizing this is another way of, like, you know, how history is not really being told, you know, full history, because, you know, it just made sense. So many things made sense to me when in this book, you know, she brings it up as, yeah, a way to escape societal rules. And so many archetypes of women in books and novels fit this idea, finding refuge in a rented room. You think about it, it's pretty amazing. Anyhow, so I'm just gonna continue. I'm pixelating and I'm continuing to add darker to lighter. But so there were some portraits. Oh, by the way, so Gwen John, unfortunately, if you just type Gwen John, unfortunately, she's essentially mostly known for the fact that she became a model to Augustus Rodin, the sculptor. Maybe Lois, you can tell us a little bit about that. You went to the Rodin Museum, and they had a relationship. They had a relationship. He wasn't great. He wasn't great. Um, uh, she had a really hard time. There was a 36-year difference between them. I think she started modeling, and that's something really important to understand. A lot of a lot of intellectuals and artists and creatives who escaped society or escaped the UK and went to Paris, they found refuge in working for other women or with other women. And I think that's not talked enough. So Gwen John became a model for other artists, but she always modeled for other women, for female artists. And she was recommended or referred to by an assistant of Rodin or a friend of Rodin. And Rodin was her first male artist that she modeled. And she just fell completely in love. Rodin was at the apex of his career. He was so well known, so famous at the time. I think he was 60. He was in his 60s. Yeah, he was in his 60s. But yeah, there was a relationship. He totally ignored her. She started writing to him. She got a room in an apartment, in a place, in a building nearby his studio. And she started to write to him letters. There's a book compiling all the letters Gwen John wrote to Rodin that apparently it's amazing. Yeah. In the end, she cut the cord and survived. She survived. She moved on, and not only she moved on, but the 10 years of struggle, emotional struggle, she used those years to find her voice, and then her painting style completely changed. And so she wasn't a victim, although I feel like he probably treated her like crap. Oh, also very important, women were not allowed to be in public spaces by themselves. They were not allowed to be in bars or pubs or clubs. They had to be with their husbands. So rooms, private rooms became hubs, meeting points for women to congregate and feel safe. And if you remember at Montpesson's house, Barbara hosted other female artists in the house. They painted together. They hosted evenings together. There was a community around that home, and that fits perfectly the narrative of private spaces as safe spaces for women that were not allowed to do much on their own. Okay. Darker to lighter. I'm doing too much highlights and I'm having a hard time darkening certain areas. So I should just focus and yeah, make sure that that gets covered. Another beautiful thing about her practice, she sketched a lot. She wrote a lot about her paintings. She was very meticulous in regards to composition. She was inspired by the Dutch Renaissance artists in creating those rooms with this magical light coming from the outside. Jen, I'm just gonna give you, if you can, what's happening here? Yeah, so gosh, I don't know if I'll be able to. There's a painting by Gwen John in a room. She is by herself. I'm gonna challenge you. She's by herself in front of an empty chair, an orange empty chair that has a cat on it. Very well, she lived by herself, but she also lived with cats. And she's by a window that's open, and you can see another room through the window. And in that room, there is a painting hanging. If you can find that painting, that is my favorite painting of her.
Okay. I'm on it. And it's amazing if I was like, found it. That was my hope. And I didn't immediately find it.
You did.
No, hold on. But
She's wearing black. And the lights behind, it's like a gown. The lights behind, coming from behind.
okay, so okay, it's an empty chair.
And it has a French title.
Okay.
And there's an orange chair and a cat on it.
Okay. I'm gonna find it.
It's a pretty famous painting.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just pixelating using some oil. I'm doing essentially first color notes. First color notes.
It's called, I have it called The Great Cat.
No. There are many portraits of women with cats on their laps. But this one, the cat is on a chair, which I love because there's an empty chair and there's a cat.
There's an empty orange chair and a cat, and she's sitting next to a window. And then if you open the window, there's another room behind her.
Yes, and there's a painting in that room, a tiny painting.
Yes. Okay. Maybe it is like, oh, her self-portrait. Gorgeous.
Isn't it?
Holy heck.
It's wonderful.
Goodness gracious.
She was amazing. She won.
All right, I'm gonna post both of these.
Yeah. You can put it on the
okay.
Live Freedom.
The name of the website is The Great Cat. That's the name.
Oh, really? Okay. Sorry.
thegreatcat.org.
Oh, the name of the website.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a gorgeous painting. Just wanted to say that she went to the Slade Art School in London. Her brother, Augustus John, I have to say his painting style is amazing also. She had another sister, Winifred John. She was also a painter. And their mother, I forgot her name, but their mother was a painter as well. Their mother died when Gwen John was 8 years old.
Oh.
But she was a painter as well. So it's a whole family of artists. And yeah, oops. Sorry, guys. So I'm doing darker shadows. Okay, something's happening. Woza. What's going on? Yeah. All right. A lot's going on apparently. Okay. All right, amazing. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna continue and then maybe I'll just switch the brush and use a small brush. I'm going to start doing some detail and focusing in one part of the painting. Not too small, a smallish brush, relatively small. Okay, let's see what happens. And yeah, I'll show the painting in a little bit. But so we were just talking, Chloe and I were talking about her and her work, her amazing paintings, her life story, really fascinating. And then after Rodin, her style starts to become freer and much more expressive. And we noticed something, was something about the paintings that she did later of women, the portraits. This is not in the book, but we noticed that the bodies of the women were becoming larger and larger, and the faces and the heads of the women were becoming smaller and smaller. There was something about the scale of head versus torso that was really interesting. Not only that, but she loved to drape the figures with shawls and capes and fabric. So they felt very monumental. They felt very statuesque. I don't know. There was something really interesting about that scale. And there was one painting that reminded me of a contemporary artist. Her name is Celia Paul. And I think I'm sure we've mentioned her name before, but she is from the UK. She lives and works there. She's represented by Victoria Miro, the gallery. And I thought, gosh, this is like, it looks like Celia Paul. I was wondering if there was any connection between Celia Paul and Gwen John. Well, I found a podcast of an interview that someone did of Celia Paul back in March, I believe, in which she announces, or they were promoting a book that Celia Paul wrote of letters that she wrote to Gwen John, letters that she wrote to Gwen John because she considers Gwen John her inspiration, her role model. She loves her life, and there are similarities between the way she lives her life, Celia Paul, and the way Gwen John lived her life. So to show this kind of like gratitude, paying homage to this artist who is not contemporary and Celia Paul never met. I forgot which year Gwen John died, but Celia Paul is still alive. She decided to write letters to her that she never sent, obviously, but she published in a book. And in the interview, which is just so powerful, she describes the parallels of her being in love with Rodin, Gwen John. Celia Paul's was Lucian Freud partner, or she had a relationship with Lucian Freud.
No way.
Yeah,
That's my person.
They had a son. And the age difference was even greater. And the similarities were also pretty poignant in the sense that Lucian Freud was, the expression is really bad, married to his job, meaning he needed silence and complete isolation to paint. And he couldn't have a functioning relationship with anybody. But also, Celia Paul in the interview says this worked for her because she works in the same way. So I think I'm gonna get this book for sure, but I just found it really interesting that we saw some stylistic similarities between those two artists And little did we know, there is a connection. Celia Paul in the interview, I think I'm gonna try to find it and post it because it's powerful. She even finds physical similarities between her and Gwen John. So that's kind of like the level of, I would say, kookiness that goes beyond the normal. You know, yeah, she feels like she is Gwen John in a way. Really amazing. Let me see if I can find, where can I find? Oh, yes, I know an easy way to find it. Because if you are driving and you find yourselves with nothing to listen to and your cue of things that you need to listen, please play this. I'll find it. It's beautiful. Okay, let's just reach out for the blues. I need to organize the bags because I feel like I just tossed everything in here and they're all, let's just do which blue? I don't know, cobalt blue hue. What am I doing? Cerulean? Yeah, it's gonna be cerulean. Oh yeah. Okay, so I have, great. We have, oh no, it's not happening. Hold on. Sorry. I need to charge the iPad. I'll put it later, the link to the podcast. And I'm just gonna start using color. Oh yeah, so I'm gonna do peripheral areas. I'm gonna work on the denim just a little bit. I'm gonna give myself 10 minutes and then I'll just work on the face. I feel like I need to concentrate. Oh, by the way, sorry that I'm repeating myself, but one of the things, the way she worked was very interesting. She took a long time to decide composition and to write about the concept and the themes, and but then when she executed the work, she never did more than 2 sessions. So because she believed that, you know, the work needed to be spontaneous and not overworked. So she spent more time thinking about it, planning for it, deciding, getting inspiration, than actually like physically working on it. So I thought that was, yeah, okay, good. Okay, all right. Yeah, just bringing some color. bringing some color to the denim. So again, 10 minutes. I'm just putting too much white here. And yeah, I'm gonna shorten the elbow. Think that I can do that right now. Yeah, to bring a little bit more space. Absolutely. All right, I think that totally works. And I'm gonna expand with some of the blue and the dark on the other side. Okay, totally works. I just shaved a little bit of that edge and brought some extension to the elbow. I exaggerated a little bit, and I think this gives me a much more, it's hard because this is a little bit foreshortened, but it just gives me, I like the composition a little bit more. Okay, so 10 minutes, I'm just gonna work on the cylindricness of the arm. Cylindricness. Yeah, a few notes here and there. And I'm gonna bring some lighter blues on the upper part or the middle section of the upper arm. Yeah, a little bit of the idea of wrinkles doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to spend the next 2 weeks on this. I'm just going to do more than two sessions. Sorry, Gwen, but I haven't achieved that level of confidence yet. It's going to be a couple of a few sessions, or maybe, we'll see. I'm being scattered, so I'm not focusing too much in one spot. In her evolution of the work, there's confidence. So when she went to Slade Art School in London, her work is so classical. But then later in life, she became much more confident in the sense that she didn't need to rely on classicism to paint. Celia Paul says that she discovered there's not much work on display. She didn't paint that much. Apparently there are 128 oils existing, which I think it's still a pretty nice number, 128. But we were actually pretty lucky to have seen one of her pieces in that building in Arundel's, because it's not something that it's displayed enough, even though the quality of her work is amazing. But I forgot the exact gallery or the museum where she saw it, but she recalls in the interview the first time that she saw a Gwen John, it was a portrait of a room, a painting of a room with a figure in it. Oh, Okay, Jen, another assignment. The painting that changed Celia Paul's entire existence,
Oh my
life,
Lord.
and career. It's titled The Convalescent.
Okay. Yeah, that was the first that came up. Got it.
None of the paintings that she did exceeds 24 inches on the larger side. She never painted anything that was either taller or wider than 24 inches. So the Convalescent is a small painting. And Celia Paul says when she saw it, there was something about the painting that felt so powerful that completely blew her away.
Hmm.
And then she started studying her, and yeah.
Okay, there's two different ones.
Oh, really? There's one of like a young female figure she's sitting on a chair, and I think she has a blanket or something. And
Okay,
she
so there's
looks
one, yeah, she's young and she's
with a tea or a cup.
okay. And then she's like reading something.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
If you
There's
can find
another one
the
too.
year or something, because
So it's 1918 to
that
19.
was after Rodin. That was after Rodin.
So do we think that's the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the book kind of like goes over this painting, meaning more than just someone ill and recovering. Okay, so I think I just did some work on the braid, the ponytail. I feel I can do two things. I want to spend some time with the face, obviously, but I feel like I want to bring some detail to the hand, the actual motion. And I'm going to be super thrifty with the application of brushstrokes, super thrifty, and see if I could create some sort of illusion with very little paint, the free brushstrokes. Yeah, I will be able to. I will be able to. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. A few strokes here and there. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. So I'm focusing on just mark making, essentially, just making marks on the pictorial space, and just enough so you get a sense or an idea of what's going on. I want someone looking at this to make sense of it. Someone looking at this making sense of it. And I will get there. I will do it. defining some contrast so I can pull. I want to carve the other hand out of that mess of brush strokes. Bring some, I don't know if I'll be able to do this. I'm using not the smallest brush, but a brush that has a little pointy area. Okay, yeah, I think this is working. It's just I'm trying to just indicate that there's a motion there. I don't have to be, we don't have to be specific. Indicate that there's a motion of her cutting the hair, her own hair. And then, yeah, so no, we have time because we started almost like at 10. 10 minutes after. So I'll just carry on until that. Okay, good. I'm just defining some parts. I don't define every single finger, but whatever feels like a little clearer. Constantly going back and forth. We rely on observation. So our process is very focused on observation, obviously. So I'm constantly looking at the image reference. Okay, I think this is doing it. I'm gonna darken that area on the other side to show the blonde ends a little bit more. I'm gonna bring also some white and yellow ochre to bring some highlights on the ends, hair end. Okay, I think I'm gonna stop here with the hand. I feel like the hand could be a little bit bigger on that end. And this is me like being too controlling right now because I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this, but I feel I cannot leave it alone. So I'm just bringing a little bit of that shadow to just enlarge that area because it's too, that hand is too small. The scale of the hands is something that I add to the list of criteria and premises that I need to bring awareness to. How big are the hands? How big are the hands? We make things too small. Generally, our hands are. So when we make hands, we tend to make hands too small. That would be the sentence. I don't know how to make it more embellished, but if we had a percentage of how many times we do the hands with the right size or bigger compared to smaller size, it would be 95 way too small compared to maybe 5 times we make it bigger. We need to flip that percentage. It should be, the hand should be much bigger. The hands are very expressive, so sometimes you will err on the right side if the hands of the figure you're making are larger proportionately. It's obviously a generalization, but nevertheless, bring awareness to the size of the hands when you make a figure portrait. And ask yourself the following question. Are the hands too small? That's the question. Don't ask if have I done the hands the right size? Are the hands proportionate? No, the direct question is, have I painted the hands too small? So 95% of the time, the answer to that question will be yes. It is yes on my case right here. I have some time, so 12:50. Laura. Don't worry, Laura. We're on the same team. It's just a story of our lives. I'm so happy we're together doing this. Okay, just doing an eye. I'm gonna take my time. So it's gonna be 20 minutes left if we count 10 minutes past. It was almost 10 minutes. So I hope that's okay. What's happening here? Something darker. Why am I going to the cheek? Why am I going to the cheek? You know why? Because I'm afraid to go to the other eye. That's why I'm going to the cheek. Sometimes we make decisions based on fear. We're like, I can't deal with that. I'm just gonna paint some secondary elements. Don't avoid those areas that are challenging us. I was trying to avoid the second eye because I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. It's gonna be, is it gonna be in the right place? It's gonna be bigger or smaller. I've done one. Why am I asked to do a second one if I did one and it looks good? Why does a face have two eyes? Okay, so yeah, don't avoid that that challenge. Sooner or later, you'll have to do it. So do it when you're fresh, after you did one side. Okay. I'm not painting too much. I just want to do some value work because I feel like there's something really beautiful about the recessed eyes and the slightly darker skin tone around the eyes. This photo, by the way, was taken in Iran in one of the protests. So I think that's pretty incredible. Some of the images, again, I'm glad we're doing this because this is one of the events that, you know, it comes on social media. Sometimes on social media, there are things that come up, but I feel like I'm not able to put things together. I just see it. I feel paralyzed. I feel, what is this? I feel conflicted. I want to support, but then I don't know how I can. And the easy the easy thing to do is to just scroll past. Not a judgment. I'm just talking about what I do. I scroll past, and that thing doesn't go away, and it doesn't go away, and it's been another week, and I have friends that I follow and that I admire, and they bring it up, and then I feel I need to know more about this. I need to get involved. I want to know. I want to support this person that I respect. Yeah. And then I start learning about what's happening and why it's happening and why this time it's becoming a catalyst and not before. So many women have been murdered and killed in various regimes around the world. Why this person? And why now? And then the images start gaining more symbolism and strength, and the news start to make sense. And then the schoolgirls blocking the police, that was like pretty incredible. I imagine the parents, being so fed up and that are supporting their children and doing this. I'm like, wow. So yeah, this is the equivalent. I don't know. So I don't know what the equivalent of is this image, but this is incredible. So Kian has still many cousins living in Iran, in different cities, in Tehran, in Shiraz, and I've met some of them that have come here over the years, and then they go back. And the images that they post on social media, on Instagram, I think Instagram, I don't know if it's currently blocked in Iran or not, but it's images of them in the home, talking about, the room being the safe space, and just taking everything off, all the jihabs and everything. And it's the Instagram social media of his cousins and friends and families that I see is photos inside of the house with this thing off. And sometimes he gets upset because he's saying, people are just living a double life, and it just it continues the oppression. Nothing changes if you just be a different person behind closed doors, but you have to be this other person, the minute you walk out the door. All right, so getting close to the mid-mark between 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago and in 10 minutes. I noticed already that I made the mouth too close to the nose. So I'm going to do two things, really common mistake. I'm going to raise the nose a little bit because we tend to make noses a little bit too long, 90% of the time, 95% of the time. So just because we know, because we've done this before, and we are so lucky that we have practiced portraiture a few times, I am going immediately to shorten the nose a tad. I hope that's the right thing to do. Yeah, and then I'm going to lower the lips a tad more. Her face expression is very relaxed or determined. There's no tension on the muscles of her face. Something really, really powerful. and through the corner of the eye, she's looking at the scissors. There was there've been a few protests by artists that I know or I remember that use their bodies to protest, and I think one of them for sure, it's pretty gruesome. It was an American photographer, and then I think it was during the AIDS crisis, and he sewed his mouth shut with an actual thread, and then took a picture of him with the mouth sewn. It was really shocking. And I'm gonna mention, you guys, this is real, and it's there was a protest by a Russian artist. I don't know if you have heard this, but it was pretty out there. I don't know what happened to him. He went to the Red Square, and also using your own body and kind of like cutting something off. He went to the Red Square and he nailed his genitals on the ground. Sorry, that took a really somber turn, but it was on the news, and he got arrested and he got released. But yeah, you can also find example, right? Yeah, that's pretty. I wonder, I don't know if that's the case or not. Maybe Jen, I doubt it, but you know, Chris Burden, the conceptual artist, became famous when he recorded someone shooting him. Someone shot him in the arm, and then that was a performance.
Right.
So I said, I wonder if there was a political statement of protest behind it, whether it was an anti-war statement, gun control statement. I do not know, but I'd like to find out if there was something about that performance that also used the body as a way of protesting. So this idea of using your body as a form of protest has been used many times and in different ways, mostly by artists, to bring attention to issues very effectively.
So it says he was interested in pushing the spectators to understand an actual reality of torment, agony, and desperation.
That doesn't sound.
Let's see if there's any more.
Very political, does it? I expected, somehow I expected more of that, but I'm not surprised at the same time. Okay, just checking the time, and we have a few more minutes. We know how challenging mouths are, so I am going to try to manipulate the mouth a little bit without getting trapped in doing something to
Okay, so it's a little,
Go.
I'm reading a little bit more about it.
Chris Burton.
Yeah. Um, okay, it says the meaning of the shoot performance. Now, this could be someone's opinion. I'm not sure that this is what he intended, but it says this app. So it talks about like what happened to, how he did it, what happened during the shooting. So what happened is it was supposed to just graze his arm, but the guy that was shooting him was a little bit off, and the bullet ended up going through his arm. And so it said, this after installation anecdote reflects the brutality of the Chris Burton's attention and signifies the fragility of our corporal reality. That leads to the social and political context of the time and the fact that thousands of young men were exposed to similar and much worse situations in Vietnam, whether their lives were in their own or in the hands of politicians. To be more precise, although shocking, Burton's work underlies a systematic use of violence and control, as well as its omnipresent image, presented as new reality through television, which was the dominating media at the time. Shoot has been perceived in a broader context of the student protest of 1968 as well, as a general awakening of the youngsters willing to take various and often radical actions in order to make the world a more reasonable place to live in.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to another piece.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense, if you ask me. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing that.
sure.
Okay, a few more minutes, but I'm really happy. I'm gonna bring an old hairy guy. We should name this differently, but why not? And I'm just gonna soften some of the brush strokes, especially the eyebrows. I don't want them to be too harsh. Oh, it's so great. Yeah. Bring your old hairy guys. They do a great job softening. Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Actually, so remember like Hania was mentioning that the paint dries faster. I think it's the board. The gesso really dries the paint because it feels pretty set. Oh, this is so beautiful. I'm so glad there's a field in our lives that makes us feel like we can say that something is beautiful. um, I should say, I should speak for myself. There's something nice about finding joy in the form. Ah, I love putting some sfumato out there. Oh yeah. I'm gonna stop right here. I think it's just gonna be very Gwen John. It's gonna be only 2 sessions for this. But I am really happy about the little detail on the face, and I'm just gonna work defining this a little bit more on the next. I feel like this is really weak just because it's very pattern-like, repetitive, and the colors are getting a little bit muddied. And also it just feels really compartmentalized. So I think this color should just go a little bit that way. But yeah, as long as we can identify areas that we could just work on next time, I'm really looking forward. Really looking forward. Okay, so really excited to chat with you. Please save some time, even if you have to go, don't go yet. We're gonna do 10 minutes break. Number 1, stretch. Number 2, hydrate. Take number 3, take a photo of the work, upload it, whatever stage. I don't care if you just did one line and wrote something about it, or a sketch or anything. So, and then we'll be able to sort of like build on our work and then decide where we want to take it. And also we're curious to find out your thoughts about this and how you feel about it. And it'd be interesting, or maybe ideas that you may have. So I'm going to stop the recording right now, and then we'll reconvene in 10 minutes at 1:20. All right.